that is that we all know that it is pejorative, that it's easy to dismiss, and that we regularly dismiss. That is the pejorative sense of the fanaticism that Bert has very clearly articulated, which has these elements to it. The first element is the absence of reason, the second is intolerance, the third is a form of fundamentalism, you might say, and of course the fourth, referring to Afghanistan and others, is today, in today's world, it's hard not to also associate with terrorism. And there's an easy figure to capture this, Mr. Bin Laden, and we say he has all of these things, and he's a fanatic. Now, he's a fanatic, and in the sense that we say he's a fanatic, and he's a problem for us as a fanatic. He's a problem for us because he has a particular view of the world, and in that view of the world, those of us who may not be associated with his view of the world cannot live in that world. He attacks many people for not agreeing with him or disagreeing with him, or for not upholding particular values that he might uphold. Now, there is a defense of Bin Laden as not a fanatic, and I'm not so interested in that. That's a different question. But we can say, we can put him in the category of fanatic and say that's bad, that's a pejorative connotation. He captures all of those bad things, almost like a cartoon figure, if you will, sitting in these caves, issuing edicts. And it's quite easy for us to say, well, fanaticism is bad. But I want to talk about similar figures for how fanaticism might be good, and ask, how can we think of a fanaticism that is about how we live together, but is intimately connected to this idea of what is the truth, and fanaticism as something that is contributing positively. And this is an example that comes from 150 years ago from the United States. In the United States, in the late 1800s, late 1800s, sorry, we had slavery. We all know about the Civil War in the US, the abolition of slavery, and Abraham Lincoln. But before slavery was abolished, in that debate, during that period over the Civil War, there was an intense debate between two views. The first view, epitomized by Abraham Lincoln, said, it is the Union first and foremost, and I will do whatever is necessary to save the Union. So his question was not what's right or wrong, his question was, how do we live together? How can we save this Union so that we may live together with the South? But then there were those who were the abolitionists, and this is prior to the Civil War, period prior to the Civil War, who said, we don't care about the Union. We don't care about the Union first or last. The Union may or may not exist. What we care about is this great evil called slavery that exists in the United States. And this group was called the abolitionists, and they were not nice people. They were not polite people. I have various examples of what they did, but for example, they would go into churches wherever there was a sermon, and they would get up in the middle of a sermon and start declaiming against slavery. They would yell and scream against it. Then they would stand in the middle of the market and start arguing and shouting about slavery. Wherever they went, they would immediately get up and start disrupting meetings and saying, slavery is bad, it is an evil. They were seen as a crazy, marginal, intolerant sect, completely uninterested in what their fellow citizens were thinking about or feeling when they went around disrupting and messing up these meetings. And not only did they do that, some of them also actively engaged in terrorism. You might have heard of John Brown, who was a famous abolitionist who attacked this fort, killed a number of people as an act of violence to exercise the conscience of the United States in order to abolish slavery. And they were extremely clear on this. They said, look, we are not interested in living in peace and harmony with our neighbors. These are white people, most of them, not all of them. Many blacks were also involved in it, but white people had a greater possibility to act up. And what we are interested in is getting rid of this great evil. Not only did they behave badly, say that the wrath of God was upon all those who supported slavery or tolerated it, they also did something more. They said, very proudly, "May God preserve us as fanatics." They were accused by everybody else as fanatics, and they said, "May God preserve us as fanatics. And may we continue to be fanatical in our opposition to this great evil." Every aspect of their life was dominated by their opposition to slavery. And they went ahead and acted in a way that consistently, persistently, and not just irritatingly, but horribly irritatingly, did not ask the question of how we can live together here, but they said, how can we abolish this great evil and get rid of it from the United States? And they didn't win. What happened was there was other politics took over. There was a civil war. The civil war could have gone either way, but the North won. Slavery was abolished, and they became suddenly, from being attacked and vilified by the press, from being cast out as being unacceptable, impossible, marginal, they suddenly became the harbingers, the forefathers, the people who predicted and acted towards creating a better, more decent, and more equal society in the United States. Today, people look back and every white person in the US has a grandfather who was an abolitionist. So that is another form of fanaticism, and it is a fanaticism that I would say is positive fanaticism, because it asks and challenges the mainstream and asks them to think differently about who we are and what the truth means and how we live together. But what is different about that form of fanaticism from the negative form of fanaticism